Hi everyone, welcome back to The Shelves Have Eyes. I'm Phantom, and today we'll be unboxing the HasLab project from last year, Omega Prime, which just arrived in the mail. So, for those of you not in the know, Omega Prime comes from the 2000-2001 series Transformers Car Robots, which was a Japanese anime series based in the G1 Transformers continuity. When Hasbro brought it over for localization, following the series finale of Beast Machines, they realized that they had no Transformers media for the current season. So what they ended up doing was taking Transformers Car Robots and transforming it into a completely different series with no connections to G1 called Transformers Robots in Disguise. I remember watching Transformers Robots in Disguise on TV, and I also remember not really liking it that much at the time. I mean, we had just come off Beast Wars and Beast Machines, and no matter what people say, I contend that Beast Machines was a really interesting series. It's got absolutely ridiculous parts to it, but I think that as a conglomeration of story, art design, music, voice acting, Beast Machines is very good for what it does. It brought the rivalry of Optimus Primal and Megatron to a logical conclusion, and I appreciated that, especially given the open-endedness of the ending of Beast Wars, which I also really liked. The ending of Beast Wars Season 3, Nemesis Parts 1 and 2, was excellent. I felt like it finished up a lot of character story arcs somewhat sloppily, but I really enjoyed that finale. By the same token, I feel like there is a certain sloppiness to the ending of Beast Machines, but I do really appreciate the show, and I think that it deserves a little bit more respect in the community. Digression aside, the next season brought to us Transformers Robots in Disguise, and for all intents and purposes, the original Japanese anime had connections to G1. It was part of the overall G1 continuity. When the series was brought over to America, they essentially erased all of those traces, except for some weird Easter eggs that the creative director and the writer of the scripts kind of snuck in there towards the end of the series. Transformers Robots in Disguise really is not part of the G1 continuity. Let's just not make any bones about it. Robots in Disguise is not part of G1 continuity. Car Robots is. But for the sake of the toy, we won't get into that for the moment. So, this is the latest HasLab project that has been shipped out, following Unicron, Star Victory Saber, and Deathsaurus. This was the next project, and then this year's project, Leozak. Is it Leozak, or is that just one of the characters? I can't remember. In any case, this just finally shipped to American backers. I believe Australia and New Zealand started getting their copies much, much earlier. Unfortunately, this particular product has a, manufacturing error in which the T-bar, for Optimus Prime is installed too large. So it essentially shears teeth on the inside of the torso when you slide the T-bar up and down as part of the normal transformation of the figure. This also a defect in the actual spine of that T-bar that holds the T-bar in place for the figure's waist is somehow misaligned or misconstructed, and so a lot of these figures are shipping to backers with a huge crack already present in the chest plate. Obviously, all American backers have been aware of this now since the first calls for it came out. They've been aware of that, and fixes have been suggested and fixes have been made. Hasbro has set up a, not exactly replacement, but a replacement policy in place. You would need to send them, if you have a cracked figure, you need to send them documentation, etc., and then they'll ship you a new part, whether that is the entirety of Optimus Prime or just his torso, we're not sure, sometime later this summer. or fall. This arrived in the mail, and I have already opened the box that has Optimus in it to confirm whether my toy had that crack. It does not. It did not have the crack on it in it. I have already opened the chest piece and sanded down the T-bar, so there should be no issues here. But I have not opened any of the other parts to this box because I wanted to do this on screen. So, going over the box, we have this enormous splash image, very nice, of Omega Prime as he appeared in the show, along with weapon that has now become a weaponizer, Blue Bolts, standard Transformers box, HasLab, Omega Prime. On this side, we have an image of Ultra Magnus as he appeared in the Robots in Disguise, along with the nice 40-year logo. On the back, we have the combined form, and it does come with the Matrix blade, which is very nice. It does come with Titan Master Cerebros, which is an interesting inclusion and surprising because it wasn't part of the tiers for backers during the HasLab project. Shows you all the steps of Optimus Prime, his vehicle mode, Autobot Blue Bolts, and then Ultra Magnus. On the other side, we have a matching image of Optimus Prime. The top has a very nice image, close-up of the two characters' faces, and then Omega Prime summoning power from his chest, which I don't believe he actually did in the show, but that's fine. And I do not believe there is just a picture of Omega Prime standing with the Matrix blade on the bottom. So, just this. All right, so let's open up this box and see what we can see. Now it comes in multiple parts. Each one has a box, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I actually really like the way that this was packed. This was packed with no plastic in the actual packing container itself. It's all untaped, unstapled cardboard filler pieces. It was very easy to break down. They were just folded together with tabs. Very easy to recycle. I really appreciate that, actually. So let's start taking these out. Why is this so difficult? Let's take that Optimus first, I guess. So when this first came, I just guessed that one of these longer boxes was Optimus so that I could do the fix on him. And it turned out that my first guess was correct. Alright, so here we have the 4 boxes that come inside the main box. This one I know is Optimus. This one is presumably Ultra Magnus. I'm going to assume that Blue Bolts and the stands that were part of the tier unlock that happened with the set is in there, and I presume that Blue Bolts is in this box. But let's start with accessories, and then we'll do figures. So inside, what is this, box number 2? Inside box number 2, we have Blue Bolts. We have the overall directions, I'm going to guess. And we have the Space Bridge display stands. Comes in 2 trays, so that's a huge stand. And you have Titan Master Cerebros down here, but I'll show him off in greater detail in a moment. There's free Blue Bolts from his packet in prison here. So here we have Blue Bolts. I think this is actually a very interesting decision for them to make. I think it was actually really smart. This Blue Bolts in the original version of the figure was not a weaponizer. He just was a double-barreled Gatling gun that shot missiles. And for the value of getting these figures, I'm glad that they went this route. I think it was really smart. And he's a really nice looking figure. Here we have 2 missiles, which I presume go to Ultra Magnus, but I'm not exactly certain yet. These are the stands for the Space Bridge stands, which will be nice, because the original version of the Omega Prime figure was extraordinarily top-heavy. So he pretty much only stood in one position, and if he was not held up, he would just fall backwards and destroy everything on your shelf. It happened to me several times in the past. So we've got 2 stands. And here we have the Cerebros figure that comes with this particular set. Very nice. Yeah, it's interesting just because in the series, I believe this character in the cartoon anime, I believe this character was called the Emissary. And the Titans Return Fortress Maximus figure, just like the G1 version of the figure, is a double headmaster. And I believe for that toy, the small headmaster that goes onto the deluxe class figure is called the Emissary. He forms the head of the deluxe class figure, who for Titan's Return is called Cerebros, who then transforms into the head of the Titan Fortress Maximus. So here they flipped it. This is Cerebros, who transforms into the head of Emissary, who then transforms into the head of Fortress Maximus. Or was it Brave Maximus in RID? I think it was Fortress Maximus. I still think it was Fortress Maximus. And that's this case taken care of. I'm going to set all this stuff over here and then open up all the boxes so I can clear this space of all of the packaging materials. So this is just the instruction packet, which seems to have all of the instructions for all of the figures. The Omega Prime instructions, individual instructions for Ultra Magnus and Optimus, and Blue Bolt's down here. So that's nice. I do like how he's a weaponizer. I think that's really cool. And it kind of makes sense for that. If you're going to make that into a character, he should be a weaponizer. So next we're on box 4, which has Ultra Magnus. And also comes with the chest plate to Omega Prime. So let's out. Very nice vacuum metallicized pieces here. These are the head antenna to Omega Prime. Very nice indeed. And here we have Ultra Magnus as he appears. We'll go in depth with this figure and also put the this is the cow catcher to this particular figure. I presume that they had to disassemble it for shipping. This is package number 1. And it contains the Matrix Blade. Very cool. Did not have this accessory for the original version of the figure. I believe it was Japanese only. It was a Japanese exclusive part. Blade itself, and then these parts that make up the hilt. Which brings us to Optimus Prime. So, once again, we have a separate little package that has the vacuum metallicized antenna for his super mode. As I said, I already opened this figure, this package, in order to get at the pieces I needed for the fix. Alright, so these are all of the pieces that come with this particular package. Now what I will do is I will very briefly go through the instructions to make the display stands and complete the accessories. Then we'll get into the figures themselves. Alright, so we'll just go over a little bit of the instructions as we go. It's very simple. It tells you package by package what you're doing. So I think that that's a pretty smart way of doing it, quite honestly. So this is all just the assembly instructions, not transformation. And then the next page is Optimus. So. Alright, so here is the Matrix Blade itself. It is as tall as the figure is, if not actually taller. You'll notice that here at the top, these two pieces are purple, which is supposed to be the energon component of the blade. In the cartoon/anime, it was translucent purple, and it left a smoky afterimage as it was used. I do not believe that the original toy version of this blade, which was Japan exclusive, I don't believe it actually came with purple ends. I believe the entire thing was all black and silver. But I do know that several other versions, gift packs, reissues of the Japanese version of the figure that came with the sword, did substitute this purple color for the end. I believe in the original toy, these were actually solid. It's kind of disappointing that it is this kind of recessed, a lot of negative space design. But for the sheer size of this, I am not going to complain. But this is also, would not surprise me, I don't own it. It would not surprise me if this was also the version of the Matrix blade that came with the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Fortress Maximus figure. Because that would make sense, right? Hasbro would still just have that mold. So that would kind of make sense. The only issue I have, potential issue I have with this piece, it's very impressive. One just minor issue I may have is that this does nothing for the figures in their normal modes. So it does have the ability to break down. These pieces all do come apart, but I don't think that they come apart and then actually form parts for the rest of the figures. I think they really are just this, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with. It's just something that I think people ought to know. I'll do blue bolts at the end. So these are the two display stands that come with the figures. They are identical to each other. This was part of the unlocked tiers for the figure itself. They are extraordinarily heavy duty. I do not doubt that they will hold the figures up very well. And key thing here is this is actually two parts. So I believe Ultra Magnus has a connector piece that will allow this to better connect to him, but I know that this flat piece is to support Omega Prime in their combined mode. At least that's what the instructions say. Now, key here is you take the stand parts out, and they give you these two pieces, which I was kind of wondering where they went, for what purpose. And they are actually the connector pieces to connect these two bases together to make the space bridge backdrop. So it is now long enough to have each figure sit on it. So you got that. Little Cerebros guy. I mean, he's just a little Titan Master. And I mean, he transforms just like every other Titan Master, and he makes the emissary's head. That's really it. He doesn't even have a pull down to cover the face of his face. It's weird that they would include this and not tell anyone about it. It was a complete surprise for backers. It's cute. It's okay. I'm not going to complain. And apparently, this little Titan Master can sit in the seat of Optimus Prime's fire engine control. So that's cool. I like that. All right, so blue bolts. For blue bolts, the part that he constitutes as part of Omega Prime did not transform in the original toy, nor in the anime. He was just a double-barreled blaster that Ultra Magnus used. That's it. So they've turned him into a weaponizer. I like that. I think it makes sense. Truthfully, I'm actually really impressed at how good he looks, considering the part that they had to work with. I know that they discussed and brought in the original designer of these two toys to help re-engineer them for this HasLab. And I think it shows, because the fidelity to the anime models is actually really amazing compared to the original 2000-2001 Car Robot Robots in Disguise versions of the toys. And I really like how this slots so well into Legacy War for Cybertron style. He looks really good. Posability is excellent, as you'd expect from any modern figure. He can stand up, he can crouch, He's got almost a double joint there in his elbows. He doesn't have fingers, he just has guns. That's it. And these two missile pieces are going here according to the instructions. Sure. I mean, I've got no reason to say that that looks weird or wrong, because this isn't even a character in the original toy or the anime line. So what am I going to say to that? Looking at the instructions for Blue Bolts, much like his brethren in other lines, he is a weaponizer. So he really only exists to form the double-barreled howitzer that Ultra Magnus used. They do have two alternate forms for him, but I don't know why you would ever transform him into these. You can see here in the instructions that the first thing that they have him transform into is that double-barreled howitzer. That makes sense. Also, it makes sense that these are not firing missiles like they were in the original toy. And then further down here, we get a second version, which is another weaponizer, where he forms two guns and a backpack with missiles on it. And then further on down here, you got two separate missiles, two separate guns, this weird backpack torso, and then I don't know what these are supposed to be. But I don't know why you would ever want to break him down into those components unless they were something that you would use for a weaponizer. I'm not entirely certain what they're trying to do with that. Okay. Here, they show you how he interacts with Ultra Magnus in each of these modes. So this is essentially exactly how the original figure worked. And then this shows how you attach those pieces to his car mode. And then this shows you that Ultra Magnus can hold the two separate blasters, and then that is a backpack. And for his complete breakdown mode, it looks like these pieces actually fill in gaps in the Ultra Magnus figure, which is actually a tremendously great idea. The fact that he breaks down fills in a lot of the issues that people would have with a lot of... I mean, Ultra Magnus is essentially a parts form. You can't really get away from that, but by filling in some of those gaps, I think that that's an interesting way to do that. Blue Bolts, you've justified your existence. Alright, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty of this, shall we? This is Ultra Magnus. And I'm just going to put his little cow catcher here. Alright, so this is the Ultra Magnus figure. I've just put his cow catcher on. It affixes in the same way as the original figure. You can see that Ultra Magnus is currently in his trailer form. The original figure held 4 cars. Looks like this only holds 3. 1, 2, and then the third one in the middle. He can't fit a fourth simply because his backpack here projects into the car carrier section. These still pop down for the ramp. So a very solid figure as opposed to the original. We'll get more into that when we do the in-depth analysis of this figure and the transformation. As for Optimus, his fire truck mode looks very nice. It has a metallicized, well, not metallicized, but this is chrome paint on the end of his engine, fire hose. While we're here, let's just put his little ears on. These two pieces came separately. They are metallicized, vacuum metalled plastic pieces. They are identical, so it doesn't matter which one we put into his head on either side. They fit very loosely. I'm not really quite sure I like that. And he also comes with his normal gun, which in the original figure went into a piece that jutted out here, but I don't see that piece here. I am just going to put it into one of these slots right here for the moment. And these are the vacuum metalled ears to Omega Prime. The combined head, which is hidden inside Ultra Magnus's torso, so we're not going to do that just yet. I'll put those on when we actually do Ultra Magnus. Here are the two figures that come in the set, and they actually look really nice. They do look like they did in the cartoon. I really actually am appreciating Ultra Magnus's design a lot better. He has what has become standard for this particular type of vehicle mode, which is he has a recessed windshield. You'll find this in the Legacy Cybertron Optimus, any of the Ultra Magnuses they've come out with recently. Nova Prime has this. The Nova Prime toy takes a lot of nods from this Ultra Magnus figure. We'll see how that goes as we go on. Now, I had to dig up from storage my original Ultra Magnus and my original Optimus. Oh, Optimus fell apart. So here are the original versions of the figures, next side by side next to their new counterparts. Unfortunately, Ultra Magnus is prone to this kind of yellowing. I've had a chance to peroxide him so that he looks correct again. The original versions of these figures, these are actually the Japanese versions of the toys. So this is Fire Convoy and God Magnus. Let me just take the new figures out of the reckoning for a moment, and we can. So you'll see that God Magnus has essentially the same look profile, and Blue Bolts in the original version was just a Gatling gun, and he just went on top of Ultra Magnus's car storage unit here, so I'm just going to take him off for reasons. Now, as I said, these are the original Japanese versions of the toys. The Japanese versions differed from the versions that Hasbro put out for Robots in Disguise only in a couple of ways. Both of these figures included lights and sounds, which at this point are completely defunct in both of these toys. I've tested them with fresh batteries. Didn't appear to be any leakage from the old batteries that were in there, but the sound component just does not work. Fire Convoy, in this case, they had rubberized wheels, which still held up pretty well after all this time, as did God Magnus. The Hasbro version of the figure came with plastic wheels, not rubber. Aside from the sound bites and a few minor changes, the Hasbro version has a tampographed Autobot logo on both sides of God Magnus. This one does not, because this is the Japanese version of the toy. These, I'm also missing all of the missiles for them. I apologize for that. I just cannot find them. I have moved twice with my Transformers collection, and I had to look in storage for my initial move for both of these figures. Went through a lot of cobwebs trying to find them. Had to clean them up a little bit in order to make sure I had all the parts and transform them. Fire Convoy is missing this little handheld blaster. I can't find it in the box. He did originally have it, obviously. And I'm missing all of the missiles. So one of the key components that carried over to the newer versions of the figure is you push this button and... Oop, okay, that's not working. Twin water cannons flip out. And there's a button on the back of the ladder where if you flip it, all of these would fling out and shoot missiles. I don't have the missiles, unfortunately, so that's not going to work. But for all intents and purposes, these two figures are complete, and I'll be doing a little bit of a back and forth between the two of them, a comparison, when we move to the individual figure transformations. In Japan, Car Robots had Fire Convoy and God Magnus. Fire Convoy upgraded himself with his armor and the pieces to his fire truck into Super Fire Convoy. And the little audio box inside would scream out in Japanese, combined to form Super Fire Convoy. When he transformed into combined mode between these two, in Japan that was God Fire Convoy, which is really just a portmanteau of God Magnus and Fire Convoy. When you connected the two figures, he would yell out and his eyes would light up, saying, combined to form, I think in the Japanese it's Super God Fire Convoy. We'll be doing a little bit, as I said, we'll be doing a bit of comparison between the two of them when we get to it. Talking about how long ago this is now. I'm going to say 24 years ago, I bought both of these figures import from, I can only presume, was the predecessor of TF Source or any of those others. It was an extraordinarily expensive toy at the time. I believe I paid $200 or somewhere thereabouts for the pair of them. So that combined to $100 for each figure. When you look at it that way, it's amazing that 24 years later, we got this version of Omega Prime through HasLab for essentially the same price. The HasLab for Omega Prime came out to be about $208. I think it's astounding that almost 25 years passes and you're buying the same figure for essentially the same price that I paid for these two import. God Magnus does have a flaw with his legs. You'll see his legs poking out here. God Magnus is essentially a parts former. You have to take him apart in order to transform him from car carrier mode to robot mode. The issue here is that this hip piece here, when you transform these legs, the instructions call for you to really do some very difficult movements with the ratchets in here, which are super tight. And what that resulted in is a lot of breakage. These legs are actually replacement legs. I needed, this particular toy shattered his pelvis well on a decade ago. And probably about 5 years ago, I bought the American version of the figure in a parts lot. It had virtually none of the pieces. It was completely defunct, but the torso and the legs were complete. So I just swapped them out for these two pieces here. But aside from that, this is still the original toy. So now that we've got that out of the way, how about we move on to individual figures? So here is Optimus Prime / Fire Convoy. Superficially, I don't really see that much of a difference between the two of them. When I was disassembling Optimus in order to fix his T-bar issue, I did notice a few things that are markedly different in terms of transformation from the original version of the figure to the new figure. Let's move Fire Convoy off to the side and let's take a look at Optimus. I really like the way this looks. It doesn't have the flat edges of the original toy. It does have slightly more detailing here. We'll see if that's advantageous or not for my review of this figure. But let's take a look and see how this fares compared to the original. I am noticing right now that this does say Cybertron on the side with Japanese lettering, rather than Optimus Prime with an American lettering on it. It's a small difference, but it's interesting. Right, there is no latch for the ladder. These don't flip out. You have to manually move them. But that's because the nozzles now are able to be directed, which I like. That means that when the ladder is raised, he still shoots in a straight line. So that's an interesting little design choice. As I said, the original designer for the first version of the toy did come back to design these, and for the most part, there are very small superficial changes. I mean, you can watch the videos on Hasbro Pulse where the designer talks about what he did differently for the full background on that. But let's take a look and see what the transformation differences are between the two. Okay, so looking at the instructions, it appears that when you turn this down, this is now a basket that Cerebros can stand in and control. that's actually a pretty interesting design choice. And Cerebros can also sit in the control for the ladder itself. So that's actually really cool. And this gun, apparently, let's just take one of these pieces out. The gun now stores underneath, which now makes sense for why there was always a roll there, a wheel. Rolls pretty well. The underside rolls as well, so that's pretty good. All right, so let's separate this figure out, shall we? The figure separates at these hinges. You essentially end up with an end, middle, and front. These pieces that form the gauntlets for Super Fire Convoy, or Super Optimus Prime, are actually affixed much better in this version than they were in the original. They just kind of sat there. They attached with pegs in the original. Here, they are actually part of the transformation. You need to open the hands here in order to close around that tab. So that's interesting. Already a huge difference with the figure. Looking at the figure initially, I was trying to figure out why that was. So a lot of people are experiencing cracks here in his abdomen, and that's because something in this this neck here, is getting stressed. And when you push the T-bar up inside, there are teeth that supposedly hold it, but it's really a frictionless system. It uses gravity to hold the torso down, so you really don't need the T-bar to be that large. By sanding it down, you essentially make it so that the toy does not break. And the pieces here, you'll see that these form the chest of Optimus. These are now on springs, so when you put the chest together, they splay apart. The lights for the vehicle mode now are just affixed with pegs. They don't light up anymore. That, flip the head on, close that. These are wings. Then you slide the torso together. So here you have Optimus Prime. He looks good. I would say that the only misgiving I have about this figure is his thighs are particularly chunky. I like the ratchet in them, and I also like some of the advances they made with the feet. He is a very bottom-heavy figure, which is kind of a surprise, but a welcome one, I guess. The only problem I have with this figure is his back is curiously thin. He has this backpack here, which I presume opens up for the super mode, but right now I'm not seeing anything here that says that the transformation of the figure to normal robot mode is any different. So no, just consulting the instructions, because some parts of this figure are a little different. No, this is how he is supposed to be transformed, and he does have this very narrow torso. Proportionally, I think he looks nice. I will say that aside from the fact that he transforms into Super Optimus Prime and then Omega Prime, this has never really been my favorite Optimus Prime version. Proportions are just a little weird. They're a little, they're very anime. But that is essentially all I can say about that. From here, let's disassemble the back end of the figure, which should be similar to the original. So here we have his rocket shoulder pads. You can see now why the figure is so built to be bottom heavy, because there are a lot of parts that can go on his top. These pieces, I don't know what these pieces are supposed to be. I know what they're supposed to be originally. I don't know what they're supposed to be here. Here in the chest plate is apparently a piece that can come out now. His Prime Matrix piece, which apparently you can take out of here and put into the main figure. I don't think we're going to do that just yet. I have no idea what these pieces are supposed to be now. Alright, I think they're just to... This movement here, these hinges are just to make it easier to transform him into super mode. I don't know what this locking piece is for yet, but we'll figure that out. Here are the outer half of the middle part of his fire engine becomes the gauntlets for Super Fire Convoy or Super Optimus Prime. They're very nice. They look exactly the same as they did before. This is the back half of him. And before I do that, let's just transform the original figure. Original figure does the exact same thing. He separates into a front half, back half, and middle. Transformation of the front half, you can see that he did have a speaker for sound, but it doesn't work anymore. Transformation of the cab section is essentially the same as it was for the new version of the figure. So here's the original version of the figure. Transforms essentially the same way. There's a little bit of change in terms of how toys are designed nowadays, so I understand that, but he still has that really thin torso. It seems less obvious for the original figure, though. I don't know if that's just because I've been staring at this original figure for, 20 years, or whether it's something else. Whether it's actually that thin, or whether it's my mind playing tricks on me saying that he's not really that thin. So you can see that the original version of the figure is what would traditionally be called an Ultra class, and this is really much more towards a Voyager class. Their chest plates are, this one is, far better. There's actual articulation in there. You can see that their thighs are still really chunky, and I think that that's mainly because of the Super Optimus Prime mode. The new one is obviously larger than the old one, but functionally, they transform essentially the same. There are a few slight differences, but I chalk that up to engineering. Let me know in the comments which one you think looks better. But for right now, let's move both of these to the back, and let's transform the ladder sections. That is the battle station mode for the new version. It looks pretty good. You've got the fingertips look like they're hoses or guns. You've got the main guns on the sides, point out like lasers, and the edges of the ladder come out to form this lattice. Looks pretty good, all things considered.
Butterfingers?
Oh, top heavy, or bottom heavy rather. Ugh. So here you have the two of them side by side. The new one is slightly larger, as makes sense for this particular figure, but functionally they transform exactly the same. The fidelity to the original toy is really quite amazing. Let's take all these apart and let's make Super Optimus Prime / Super Fire Convoy. And so there you have it. This is Super Optimus Prime. It's essentially Optimus Prime in power armor. I like the fact that they've added rocker joints to the heels. That's nice. That allows him to stand more correctly. This does flip up, and then there's a Matrix-ish chip inside. The neck is really nice. It's very articulated. It does have a tendency to go up a little high, but that's fine. This reminds me very much of a toy series from Bandai, Gridman, which was brought to America as Super Samurai Cyber Squad, cyber spelled with an S. So it was SSS, which was then made into an anime quite a few years ago called SSS Gridman, paying homage to Super Samurai Cyber Squad while remaining true to the original version of the character, Gridman. It reminds me very much of those toys from Bandai, which also came out in the 90s. They were small figures that then you put a exosuit over, essentially. You took pieces and draped them over it to make a larger version of the figure. That's what this is. You take a small-ish Optimus Prime figure, you put all of this armor on him, and he transforms into Super Optimus Prime. I actually really like the look of this figure. Proportion-wise, it looks really nice. I like the fact you can still see the blue of his chest underneath. That's a nice touch. It adds just a little bit more detail. Proportion-wise, it looks fine. I mean, it looks correct. I mean, a lot of these things a lot of the projects that we're getting from HasLab are idealized versions of toys that we had as children. They want to give you a figure that looks like you remember the figure being, even if the original version did not really look like that and did not play like that. So that is very evident when we take the original version and we make him into Super Fire Convoy. My Fire Convoy, I think, spent more time in Super mode and Omega Prime mode than in regular mode. So here you have them side by side. I mean, it's no contest that the new version of the figure looks better than the old version of the figure. There is something weird about the new version's proportions. Can't exactly state what it is. I mean, this is the first time I've transformed this figure in well over 15 years, and it does not look as good as I remembered it being in my head. So I think that the HasLab definitely wins. But you can see the size difference between the two of them. The newer one is almost a head taller than the older one. Also, there are some weird things with the older version of the figure, just in terms of the way that his backpack locks in. It doesn't really provide a lot of space for his arms, but that's fine. That could just be the way that maybe I mistransformed him. But this is Super Optimus Prime / Super Fire Convoy. Hey, sorry guys, but this is becoming such a long video that I think it's probably best to cut this up into 2 parts. So this will just be the unboxing and the inventory and Super Optimus Prime. And in the next video, I'll do Ultra Magnus, Blue Bolts, and the Omega Prime combination. I just think we're already almost at 50 minutes to an hour, and I love this thing so much that I could gush forever. So I'm going to divide this up into 2 parts, and I'll have the second part up really, really shortly. All right. Hope to see you back here for the second part. I've been Phantom. This has been The Shelves Have Eyes. Have a good night, y'all.